This is your Monex Metals Market Update with Mike Maroney.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Maroney, and I am coming to you today from the Monex Precious Metals Studios. It's Thursday, July 27th. Let's talk precious metals. We've seen an interesting development over the last week as many people have been very curious about why precious metals haven't been trading in the typical inverse relationship that they've traded in the past with the US dollar index. And what do I mean by that? The US dollar index was up at approximately 103. We've seen a 10-point drop from 103 all the way down to 93. Normally in this type of situation, you would typically see a move much higher in the precious metals markets. But last week we talked a little bit about this, and we talked how the stock market has actually caught a little bit of the safe haven flavor that precious metals typically hold, and investors are putting money in the stock market because they believe that is a safe place to put their money. But what we're seeing is a little bit of a crack in that armor as far as the overall strategy is concerned, because we're continuing to see the dollar drop. And yesterday we had some strong earnings, but the stock market is starting to pull back a bit. Now, why is that? It's probably because if you look at the standard PE ratios, forward earnings, all of the typical things that have been used in the past as far as valuations are concerned, you would have to say that the stock market is historically overvalued in comparison to where it's been in the past. And now people are becoming much more aware of it. Even though the VIX, which is an index that tracks volatility, is at its lowest level ever, that also means that all we have to see is a 20 or 30 point sell-off in the S&P. Suddenly we actually run stops, and the next thing you know, the stock market could be in a free fall based on something called cascading stops. And that's when many investors will put stops in below a certain number, and then they'll say we'll put more stops in below another number, which is a little bit lower. But suddenly those numbers start to get hit very quickly, and what it does, it's like a snowball rolling down the hill. It just gets bigger and bigger and moves faster and faster. And I think investors are starting to get a little bit worried about that. And that's why what we've seen over the last week is a move in gold from 1207 all the way back up to 1265, which is very close to a key resistance level at 1280, and in silver from 1515 all the way up to 1680 today. So now, what's the problem? The real issue as far as the dollar is, if you look at the political situation that exists in Washington, and you go back 8 years before President Trump took office, and our President Obama at the time had a very strong following as far as the Democratic Party is concerned. And when they controlled the House and they controlled the Senate, he never had to worry about anybody actually going against him because he almost had 100% participation from the Democrats. And when Mr. Trump was elected, he actually controlled the House and he controlled the Senate. So many people felt that he would be able to implement his strategies very easily. And those strategies were, of course, we were going to see Obamacare repealed, we were going to see a new health care bill, we were going to have infrastructure spending, we were going to have tax cuts, and we were going to do all sorts of things that were going to be very good for the economy. But now what's happened is the world is looking in and perception is changing, the dollar is dropping, and it's testing a very key support level. I would love to show every one of you a chart of the US dollar. Now normally I would put it on the screen, but I didn't have time today, but this is the US dollar chart. And if you go back over the last 3 years, you'll see that the 93 support level is absolutely key. And I liken that to the atmosphere of the Earth. And when we're above 93, the dollar is kind of in space. There's not a lot of things that are holding it down. But if it breaks under 93, it's like moving back into the Earth's atmosphere, and suddenly gravity will start to weigh on it, and we could easily see the dollar drop another 5 or 6%. And in that situation, investors will start to get nervous and more money will flow into precious metals. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when, based on the mathematical calculations that exist here in the United States as far as debt and our overall budget is concerned, that the US dollar will lose its value. It will become worth less, and someday I wouldn't be surprised if it's almost worthless in comparison to precious metals. That's why now may be the best time to own gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. Give us a call. We'll send you a copy of the chart, and we'll talk about how you can use precious metals to protect your portfolio and to potentially profit from these types of situations. Thank you.